When was the last time you heard anyone talk about Victory motorcycles with the energy the brand used to create? Almost never. And that says everything. There was a time when this name represented America's boldest challenge to Harley-Davidson's century-old dominance. Polaris Industries invested $2 billion building what many considered superior motorcycles. Their bikes outperformed Harleys in nearly every measurable category: power, reliability, and technology. Victory captured racing championships and earned engineering praise from industry experts. But superior performance only matters if customers care about performance over identity. The momentum was real, and Victory rode it all the way to international expansion. But momentum only lasts if you understand what customers actually buy. Victory sold motorcycles. Harley sold membership in American mythology. The name stayed recognizable, but the influence faded. So today's question is simple. How did Victory build better bikes, yet lose the war? And what does their $2 billion failure teach us about competing against emotional brands? Harley-Davidson wasn't just another motorcycle company. It was an American institution woven into the cultural fabric of the nation for over a century. Founded in 1903, Harley-Davidson survived challenges that would have destroyed lesser companies. The Great Depression nearly bankrupted them, yet they persevered. 2 world wars came and went, with Harley supplying military motorcycles and cementing their patriotic image. Japanese competition in the 1970s nearly finished them before a remarkable comeback in the 1980s. Through it all, Harley maintained something more valuable than production facilities or patents. They maintained cultural relevance. The sound of a Harley-Davidson V-twin engine became synonymous with American freedom itself. That distinctive potato-potato-potato rumble wasn't just an exhaust note. It was a sonic embodiment of rebellion, independence, and rugged individualism. Harley actually tried to trademark their engine sound in 1994, understanding its value as a cultural touchstone. While the trademark attempt failed legally, the cultural ownership was already secure. When Americans closed their eyes and imagined the sound of freedom on 2 wheels, they heard a Harley. By 1998, this cultural momentum had translated to extraordinary market dominance. Harley controlled approximately 50% of the heavyweight motorcycle market in America. Their most popular models had waiting lists stretching 6 months or longer. Think about the implications of that market position. Customers weren't just willing to buy Harley-Davidson motorcycles, they were willing to wait half a year for the privilege of doing so. This customer devotion translated directly to pricing power. Harley consistently charged 20 to 30% premiums over comparable competitors, yet demand remained insatiable. In any rational market, this situation would create perfect conditions for a competitor to enter with better products at lower prices. But motorcycles, particularly American cruisers, had never been a rational market. Because Harley-Davidson wasn't selling transportation, they were selling membership cards to an exclusive club. With chapters in every town in America, they were selling an identity that spanned generations. Fathers passed down Harleys to sons in ceremonies that resembled religious rites more than vehicle purchases. They were selling participation in a distinctly American mythology, where freedom, rebellion, and individualism found physical form in chrome and steel. This was the empire that Victory would challenge, not just a motorcycle manufacturer, but a cultural institution with a century-long head start in the American imagination. Victory's story began not on American highways, but in the snow-covered boardrooms of Polaris Industries, a company that understood power sports but had never built a motorcycle. By 1997, Polaris had established itself as a dominant force in recreational vehicles. Their snowmobiles commanded respect in northern states and Canada. Their ATVs were fixtures on farms and trails across the country. The Minnesota-based company was generating $1.2 billion in annual revenue without ever having produced a single motorcycle. But CEO Tom Tiller saw an opportunity too tempting to ignore. The American cruiser market was effectively a monopoly controlled by Harley-Davidson, which meant significant profit potential for any company that could offer a viable alternative. In 1997, Tiller made the bold announcement that Polaris would invest $100 million to challenge Harley-Davidson directly. Industry observers were skeptical. After all, Japanese manufacturers with decades of motorcycle engineering experience had tried and largely failed to capture Harley's loyal customers. What chance did a snowmobile company have? But Polaris approached the challenge with characteristic methodical determination. They hired top motorcycle engineers from across the industry, including several who had worked for Harley-Davidson and understood the technical limitations of the incumbents' designs. They invested in state-of-the-art manufacturing facilities in Spirit Lake, Iowa, determined to build quality into their motorcycles from the ground up. Rather than outsourcing components, they developed in-house expertise for critical systems. The result debuted in 1998, the Victory V92C. The name itself was a statement of intent, V for victory, 92 for the cubic inch displacement of its engine, and C for cruiser. The motorcycle featured fuel injection at a time when Harleys were still using carburetors. It offered modern suspension components when Harley was still using designs dating back decades. Perhaps most importantly, it delivered these technical advantages while maintaining the classic American cruiser aesthetic that customers expected. Early validation came from the motorcycle press, who could not ignore the technical superiority of Victory's offerings. Magazines praised the V92C's performance, build quality, and value proposition compared to comparable Harley models. The Victory delivered more horsepower, smoother power delivery, better braking, and superior handling, all at a competitive price point. Victory's engineering-driven approach reflected their snowmobile and ATV heritage, where technical performance translated directly to market share. They believed that building better motorcycles would naturally lead to market success. The early reception from the motorcycle press seemed to validate this approach. What remained to be seen was whether customers would value those technical advantages as much as the engineers who created them. Technical superiority was not translating to market share anywhere near the expected rate. The objective advantages that Victory engineers had painstakingly built into their products seemed to matter far less to customers than anyone at Polaris had anticipated. Victory had solved the engineering problem brilliantly, but they were starting to realize they might be solving the wrong problem entirely. By 2015, Victory had approximately 400 dealers nationwide, compared to Harley's 700-plus locations. They were community hubs where riders gathered, formed relationships, and reinforced their identity as Harley owners. Victory dealers offered superior motorcycles but could not replicate the tribal experience that made Harley ownership so compelling. Perhaps most fundamentally, Victory faced a cultural disconnect that engineering excellence could not bridge. Their motorcycles were technically superior but culturally irrelevant to the customers who mattered most. The average cruiser buyer was not interested in dyno charts showing horsepower advantages or magazine articles praising Victory's chassis design. They wanted belonging to a community with deep roots in American culture, a community that Harley-Davidson had spent 100-plus years cultivating. Victory executives began to understand they were not just competing against motorcycles, they were competing against mythology. Their superior products were losing to superior storytelling. The question became whether any strategy could overcome this fundamental disadvantage, or if Victory was fighting a war that could not be won regardless of their product excellence. Victory's leadership understood the nature of their challenge. They weren't just competing against motorcycles, they were competing against mythology. Their response was a comprehensive strategy aimed at addressing their heritage deficit while maintaining their performance advantages. The heritage problem was Victory's most fundamental challenge. How do you create instant tradition in a market that values century-old authenticity? Victory attempted to solve this by leaning into their association with Polaris Industries, emphasizing their American manufacturing and engineering heritage. While Polaris lacked Harley's motorcycle-specific history, they could claim a legitimate legacy of American power sports innovation dating back to 1954. Victory marketing materials increasingly highlighted the bike's American design, American manufacturing, and American ownership. Marketing efforts pivoted dramatically from their initial performance-focused messaging. Early Victory advertisements had emphasized horsepower figures, modern technology, and objective advantages over competitors. The new approach prioritized lifestyle imagery, emotional connections, and American heritage themes. Advertisements featured groups of Victory riders experiencing freedom on the open road, carefully mirroring the emotional appeals that had served Harley so effectively. Victory also pushed aggressively into the custom culture that had long been Harley's domain. They developed factory custom models, like the Vegas and Hammer with distinctive styling, and encouraged aftermarket customization through partnerships with leading parts manufacturers. They sponsored custom-build competitions and featured prominent builders in their marketing. This custom push aimed to create the personalization ecosystem that had helped Harley owners forge emotional connections with their motorcycles. The pricing strategy presented a particular dilemma. Victory motorcycles cost essentially the same to manufacture as comparable Harleys, but couldn't command the same premium pricing. Positioning themselves as a value alternative would undermine their premium brand aspirations, while matching Harley's prices without Harley's heritage seemed unrealistic. Victory attempted to thread this needle by maintaining premium pricing while offering superior value propositions, more features, more performance, and better warranty coverage at the same price point as equivalent Harley models. Perhaps most ambitiously, Victory invested heavily in transforming their dealer experience to compete with Harley's community-building retail model. They developed comprehensive dealer standards programs, invested in showroom designs that emphasized the emotional experience of motorcycle ownership, and encouraged dealers to host events that could foster community among Victory owners. They created owner groups like Victory Riders that mirrored Harley's HOG in structure and function. This multifaceted strategy represented Victory's best attempt at bridging the heritage gap while maintaining their performance advantage. They weren't abandoning their engineering-led approach, but they were acknowledging that technical superiority alone wouldn't win the market. The question was whether this balanced approach could gain traction before financial realities forced a reckoning. Victory's final years revealed the fundamental mismatch between their product excellence and market reality. Despite increasingly desperate measures, the company could not overcome the cultural momentum of their primary competitor. The 2017 Victory Octane represented both the pinnacle of Victory's engineering prowess and the last gasp of their motorcycle division. This sport cruiser featured 1,200 cubic centimeters liquid-cooled V-twin engine, producing 104 horsepower, unprecedented performance in its category. The Octane incorporated technology developed through Victory's racing program and represented everything the brand stood for: modern engineering, performance-focused design, and distinctly American styling. Motorcycle journalists praised the Octane as Victory's most compelling offering yet, but the market response proved lukewarm at best. As sales stagnated despite superior products, Victory implemented increasingly desperate measures to drive showroom traffic. Marketing expenditures increased substantially from 2015 to 2017, with aggressive promotional campaigns across traditional and digital channels. Dealer incentives multiplied, with factory support for inventory financing and sales spiffs that cut deeply into already thin margins. Customer financing programs became more generous, with extended terms and reduced interest rates aimed at lowering barriers to purchase. Racing investments continued despite questionable returns. Victory maintained their NHRA, a pro-stock motorcycle program, and expanded into other racing series, including a high-profile attempt at the Isle of Man TT electric motorcycle race. These racing efforts generated publicity and reinforced Victory's performance credentials, but the translation to showroom traffic remained elusive. Victory was winning races while losing the larger market battle. As domestic sales plateaued, Victory shifted resources toward international markets, where heritage carried less weight than performance. European markets in particular seemed promising, as riders there traditionally placed greater emphasis on technical specifications and performance metrics. Victory expanded their dealer network across Europe and adapted their marketing to emphasize the rational advantages of their motorcycles. While international sales showed some growth, the volumes remained insufficient to sustain the broader business. Inside Polaris headquarters, pressure mounted as executives questioned Victory's return on investment. By 2017, Polaris had invested $2 billion into Victory motorcycles over nearly 2 decades, yet market share remained stuck around 2%. Meanwhile, Polaris's 2011 acquisition of Indian Motorcycle, a heritage brand with authentic American history dating back to 1901, was showing more promising results despite smaller investments. Indian Motorcycles featured similar technical advantages to Victory models, but carried a name that resonated with the history-conscious cruiser market. The internal comparison between Victory's stagnation and Indian's growth forced difficult questions. Was Victory's fundamental premise flawed? Could superior engineering ever overcome superior heritage in this particular market? And if not, did it make sense to continue investing in a brand that had failed to gain meaningful traction after 17 years of sustained effort? On January 9th, 2017, Polaris announced that Victory Motorcycles would cease production immediately. The announcement sent shockwaves through the motorcycle industry, though insiders had seen warning signs for years. In his statement, Polaris CEO Scott Wine did not mince words about the reason for Victory's demise. Despite product excellence, the brand could not achieve the necessary scale to become profitable. Wine said the decision would improve the profitability of Polaris and its global motorcycle business, and would materially improve Polaris's competitive stance in the industry. The explicit acknowledgement was painful but clear. Building better motorcycles had not been enough to overcome Harley-Davidson's cultural dominance. The financial impact was staggering. Polaris had invested approximately $2 billion in Victory over its 17-year lifespan, including capital expenditures, product development, marketing campaigns, racing programs, and dealer development. That entire investment was effectively written off as Polaris redirected resources to the Indian motorcycle brand, which offered similar technical advantages, but with authentic heritage dating back to 1901. Polaris took a reported $70 million immediate charge to wind down Victory operations. For the dealer network, the consequences were immediate and severe. Over 400 Victory dealers across North America and internationally found themselves with unsellable new inventory and uncertain parts availability for existing customers. Many had invested hundreds of thousands of dollars in facility improvements to meet Victory's dealer standards programs. Those investments evaporated practically overnight. Dealer compensation programs provided some financial relief, but they could not replace years of investment in building Victory-specific expertise and customer relationships. The human impact extended beyond the dealerships. Victory's manufacturing was centered in Spirit Lake, Iowa, where the closure affected hundreds of skilled workers. While Polaris maintained the facility for Indian motorcycle production, the workforce reduction was significant. Engineers, designers, marketing specialists, and support staff dedicated to the Victory brand faced reassignment or unemployment. The specialized knowledge they had developed over years of Victory-specific work suddenly lost much of its value. Perhaps most poignantly, Victory owners themselves faced the consequences of backing the wrong horse in the American motorcycle race. Resale values plummeted immediately following the closure announcement, with used Victory motorcycles losing 20 to 30% of their value practically overnight. Owners worried about future parts availability and service support. The Victory owner community, which had developed passionate advocates over the years, found itself orphaned, loyal to a brand that no longer existed. Polaris committed to providing parts support for 10 years following the shutdown, but the message was clear. Victory motorcycles would gradually fade from American roads. The superior products they had built would eventually disappear as parts became scarce and repairs became impractical. The $2 billion invested in building better American motorcycles left little lasting impact on the industry Polaris had hoped to disrupt. What exactly went wrong? Victory's failure came down to 3 fundamental mistakes that offer valuable lessons about competing against emotional brands. First, they solved the wrong problem entirely. Victory focused relentlessly on building better motorcycles when customers fundamentally wanted better stories. Their engineering-led approach produced objectively superior products, motorcycles that went faster, handled better, and required less maintenance than their Harley-Davidson counterparts. But these performance metrics mattered far less than emotional connection and cultural belonging. Technical superiority became irrelevant when competing against tribal identity. Victory approached the market as if motorcycle purchases were rational decisions based on performance specifications, when in reality, they were emotional decisions about personal identity and group affiliation. The data tell this story clearly. Despite consistently outperforming Harley-Davidson motorcycles in objective testing, Victory never exceeded 2% market share. Meanwhile, Harley maintained approximately 50% market share with technically inferior products. The market was sending an unambiguous message, and Victory failed to internalize it until it was too late, because in this category, emotional benefits trumped functional benefits by an overwhelming margin. Second, Victory drastically underestimated the power of heritage in luxury purchases. Harley-Davidson's 120-year history created an authenticity that could not be replicated or directly competed against. When customers bought Harley motorcycles, they were not just purchasing transportation. They were buying a connection to an American tradition that spans generations. Victory offered superior motorcycles, but it could not offer that sense of historical continuity. This heritage advantage shows up most clearly in how motorcycle purchases are justified. The decision to buy a specific motorcycle is typically emotional first, and then rationalized afterward with functional arguments. Harley owners did not buy their motorcycles because of specifications. They bought them because of how owning a Harley made them feel, and then they justified the purchase with whatever functional benefits they could identify. Victory's superior performance specifications could not overcome this emotional decision-making process. Third, Victory entered a market where the incumbent controlled not just distribution channels or manufacturing capacity, but the culture itself. Harley-Davidson did not just sell motorcycles. It defined what American motorcycles meant in the cultural imagination. This level of category ownership meant Victory needed to change customer preferences entirely, not just offer alternatives within existing preference structures. Cultural institutions like Harley-Davidson are nearly impossible to displace with superior products alone. The comparison to successful challenges in other categories is instructive. Tesla did not try to out-heritage BMW or Mercedes. Instead, Tesla redefined what luxury cars could be by creating an entirely new category built around electric propulsion and technological innovation. Victory attempted to beat Harley at Harley's own game, competing directly in a category where the rules had been established by its competitor over the course of a century. These three mistakes, solving the wrong problem, underestimating heritage, and competing directly against a cultural institution, combined to doom Victory despite their technical excellence. The irony is painful but clear. Victory built motorcycles that were objectively better in almost every measurable way. Yet those advantages proved largely irrelevant to the customers they needed to attract. This analysis reveals a broader truth about competition in emotional product categories. You cannot engineer your way past culture. Superior products lose to superior meaning when the purchase is fundamentally about identity rather than function. Today, Victory motorcycles exists only in the used bike market and in the memories of riders who appreciated engineering over mythology. Their collapse offers a masterclass in the limitations of product excellence when competing against emotional brands. The current state of Victory is stark. No new motorcycles have been produced since 2017. Parts are becoming increasingly scarce, and collector interest remains minimal. Unlike discontinued brands that develop cult followings and appreciation, Victory motorcycles have largely become depreciating assets with uncertain future supportability. The superior engineering that once differentiated them now represents a liability for owners, as proprietary parts become harder to source. Polaris Industries pivoted their resources to Indian Motorcycle, a heritage brand with authentic American history, dating back to 1901, making it actually older than Harley-Davidson. This strategic shift revealed Polaris's hard-won understanding that heritage matters more than performance in this particular market. Indian motorcycles feature many of the same engineering advantages that Victory offered, but wrapped in authentic historical packaging that resonates with cruiser buyers. Indian's growing market share since 2017 suggests Polaris finally understood the lesson Victory's failure taught them. The market reality remains unchanged. Harley-Davidson still dominates American cruiser culture despite continued technical limitations. Their motorcycles generally produce less power, weigh more, and cost more to maintain than competitors' offerings. Yet they still command premium prices and inspire loyalty that transcends rational analysis. The very factors that doomed Victory continue to sustain Harley's market position. The broader truth that emerges from Victory's $2 billion failure is both simple and profound. In emotional purchase categories, superior products lose to superior meaning. Victory built the best motorcycles that nobody wanted to own. They mastered everything except what mattered most, understanding that customers were not buying transportation, they were buying identity. This insight extends far beyond motorcycles. Across categories where emotional benefits outweigh functional ones, such as luxury goods, fashion, sports equipment, and even certain technology products, the victory story offers a cautionary tale. Product excellence creates competitive advantage only when customers value the specific excellence you have engineered. Victory's engineers created motorcycles optimized for performance metrics that customers simply did not prioritize in their purchase decisions. You cannot engineer your way past culture. When competing against emotional brands, superior specifications matter far less than superior storytelling. Victory's $2 billion investment created better motorcycles, but failed to create more compelling mythology. The technical advantages they painstakingly built into their products could not overcome the emotional advantages Harley had built into their brand over generations. In markets driven by identity rather than utility, victory does not go to the best product. It goes to the brand that best understands what customers are really buying. So here is my question to you. In a world where emotional brands dominate rational choices, how do you compete against companies that own the culture itself? And when does product excellence become a competitive disadvantage? The answer might determine whether your next bold challenge succeeds or becomes another cautionary tale of superior products that nobody wanted to buy.